Welcome to Along the Rock, our podcast that pays homage to the people of the Sauk Valley, the valley and the river that runs through it. I'm your host, Mark Morris. My guest today is Judy Schmidt of Polo, who has most recently written 3 books, all for children.
Yes.
Thanks for coming up, Judy. I appreciate it, especially on this
Thank you.
Chilly day.
I'm happy to be here.
And just one by one, tell us about all 3 of your most recent works.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, they were, written over a 3-year period. The first one I did was a book called Let's Go Round an Alphabug Town. They are all 3 picture books for younger children. But Let's Go Round, I just call that one the bug book because it's about bugs. But they're all illustrated in cartoon form, and it's a rhyming picture book. And it's for any age, whether they can read or not, because if you want to read it to your child, they would love the cadence of the poetry in there. So that was my first book that I published. Well, now it's been probably 4 years ago. And then the following year, I did another book. It's not a rhyming picture book, but it was called No Pets Allowed, and it's about a little boy that really, really wanted a pet, but he lived in an apartment building, and the landlord said, no pets allowed, and of course he was determined to get a pet, and by the end of the story he does, and it has a very unusual ending. And then the last one I published, which was, a year ago now, I had written it a long, long time ago, and my brother-in-law did some watercolor illustrations for it. Excuse me. And unfortunately, that was probably the book that I started writing before the other 2. But sometimes you put it away, and it's not that I forgot about it, but I just didn't ever get it out and follow through with it.
Yeah, you need inspiration for all things.
Yeah, and so finally I thought that was just ridiculous. Why, it's not going anywhere sitting in my drawer. So I got it out, and we got that published, and that was called In Karen's Garden. And the inspiration for that actually came from my daughter when she was about 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to plant a garden, but it wasn't even spring, and so we put a bunch of seeds in a container in the kitchen, mm-hmm. and actually started to grow, and I was so glad when we could get it all outside and put it in the garden. But that was the story of her, and it's just a lighthearted story, and how she did the garden and what she did to make it grow, and then of course in the end she had flowers.
A lot of technology out there now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's available to all ages. My
mm-hmm.
great-grandkids know more than I do about a lot of things that happen on their phone.
Right.
Do you find, still identify with books and like them?
Well, I have quite a few grandchildren. The youngest one is now 10, but I've had a total of 9 grandchildren over the years. And they were all encouraged to read and be read to from an early age. So if I base it on the ones I know, of course, I think kids need to be reading. They certainly need to read to learn. And I think they like to read fun stuff. And then for the little ones, they like to see bright colored illustrations. And the type of books I wrote, I think, makes them use their imagination. So consequently, sometimes they have to think about, what's really going on in this book, and especially the bug book, because
Yeah, I read that one.
Yeah. So I'm all for that, and I've done some volunteer work in the schools, and I've gone into the schools, different schools in the area, and taken my books and read them in the classrooms, and the kids like them. And
a little different than going on Kindle, right?
No, I don't do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not the same experience.
No, it's not, and I know that they probably do all that too. But in Facebook, I'm not big on Facebook at all, so I like to write books, and I like to see the kids enjoy them if I read them to them, and I think that it's important, because when the kids go into a bookstore, what's attractive to them? Generally, it'll be a bright colored cover, and then, some big words or some funny thing on the cover that will attract them. So, yes, I hope kids continue to read, because one way or another, anyhow.
Yeah. Well, it does take, I think, that spurring on, if you will, and that, that willingness to open up their imaginations, which is a little more difficult on some online platform.
Yeah. And I'm writing another one now, which actually I started a long time ago, too. And this is going to be a chapter book. It's more for a middle-aged reader, which I consider middle age about 8 to 12 or 14, whatever in that group. Kids, of course, would be reading it themselves. It's a book called Halfway Home. My goal is to see that get published this year. And it is about 2 children that are living in foster homes. And I have a lot of experience in that topic. And so I feel like I can write that very easily and with a lot of understanding. I had somebody tell me, when I first started these books, this particular one, you think kids are going to read that stuff because they might get upset or they might not understand. And I said, I absolutely think they'll understand. My kids were in school every day with kids that were living in foster care or had different kinds of family units, grandparents raising grandkids, aunt raising nieces and nephews.
Happens a lot.
Yeah, and then, of course, not every family is just a neat little package, that, okay, a man and a woman got married 50 years ago and they still married, no, probably maybe somebody might have split during that time. Things happen. And so I think I'm pretty accurate about whether or not this book will go. And I do know that some kids will be reading it for sure.
Join us Friday, April 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the Next Picture Show in Dixon for Chapter and Verse Open Mic Night. Presented by the Radar Free Press and Sauk Creative Writers Group. Enjoy live readings from local authors sharing their works. Authors, pre-register by texting or calling 815-994-8006. Want to sponsor and support events like this? Text 815-200-6404 for more info. See you there.
Now, a question that I'm sure you have to deal with all the time. How do you decide which books are suitable for which ages?
Well, I guess as I'm writing them, it kind of comes to me, and I have 5 children that are all grown up, and I have 9 grandchildren. And like I said, the youngest is 10, and I know them. I know how, what
You've
they
learned
think.
how they think.
Yeah, and I do know that there's a way to look it up. If you go online, they'll tell you what age group this would be considered for, as far as is a middle grade reader, what age group is that? If you have early on readers, kids that don't read but just need to be read too, that's all different age groups. But I also remember that when I was growing up, my mother and father encouraged me to read, and always had books at Christmas. And actually, the first book I ever wrote, which I was 11 years old, and my mother typed it up.
Really?
Yeah. So I always liked to write too, and I had a, pretty good memory about what books I liked at what age. So
Sure.
I guess that's why I do it that way.
That helps.
And and a lot of the books can be read to children by their parents or someone else. They don't have to know how to read to enjoy them.
Okay. If someone who's not familiar with your work and would like to take a look, take a read,
Okay.
how do they get in touch with you? Or your publisher, for that matter.
Yeah, well, each book was published in a different way. I'm an independent publisher, so
Okay.
I went that traditional route long enough and thought, so did a lot of my fellow writers, like oh, okay, you're going to have something you send to them, and 6 months later you haven't heard a thing, and maybe it ended up on a slush pile on somebody's desk, maybe it didn't, and then they went to, oh, now you have to have an agent. You can't just send to the publisher anymore. No, now you got to get an agent.
More money out of your pocket.
More money out of you. So I thought, you know what? I could call these printers themselves. And the last book I did, I was done locally, excuse me. And it was almost the most fun for me because I just went over to the printing place. I sat down, I had all the original pictures, and that would have been the in Karen's garden, and I had all his original artwork, plus, of course, I had the story, and it was great because I went through it with the editor there and the man who was taking care of all that information for me, and I got to say, I want this picture with this text, and maybe we'll pull a little clip art off the computer to go on this page next to it. I mean, it was great. It was the best way.
And they didn't ignore you, and they didn't argue with you.
No. And then if I
the publisher might.
No, and then the first one, I actually went to a lady. She has a little publishing company in Freeport called McKeever Publishing, and we outsourced that book. We sent everything out. So I had the layout done in one place. I worked with people that lived in Ohio, 3 other states, which I can't remember right now.
Yeah.
And then the second one, I went through Book Baby, which is from New Jersey.
Okay.
And I had some help with that, doing it over the internet. And I like that because they sent me a copy of the whole finished book to look at it before I said, yes, I want to order them.
Okay.
So that was 3 different ways to do it. And I figured that, okay, I will pay for the printing, but then I can sell them myself for what I want, and I do.
Right.
Right now, I have them in a couple of different places. There's a store in Polo that has had, now she's got all 3 of them.
Which store is that?
It's a Christmas store.
Okay.
It's like a gift shop, but she carries a lot of very different things. I've had them, right now they're on display at the, over in Oregon, at the Coliseum Museum.
Okay.
They're over there. They're in my house.
Well, okay,
and
makes sense.
I've had people know that, and then they'll call me up and say, I need a gift for a shower gift or something. We said, come on over. And they're in my car, too.
Your business vehicle.
Yeah. And so, in Ulrin right now, they're in another little place in a beauty shop, actually. And she asked me to bring them in. And, of course, I belong to some different organizations, and when I have a new one, I usually take them and pass them around, and and so people from there, if they want something, they know to call me, and
get the word out.
Yeah. So, but as far as putting them in actual bookstores,
not so much.
I have. I found out about a new one recently. It's actually up around the Freeport area. And that one seems a little more to make sense to me. So I will probably take some up there. And I don't know. I guess
a lot of bookstores have closed.
Yeah.
Especially
I'd love to have one.
Ones.
Yeah, I'd love to have one. I mean, I would, of course, I'd carry my books, but I would carry everybody else's book, and I would carry every book that was ever written by an independent author. Because I do know a lot of people.
Yeah.
That I've been
there are a lot of people around here
that write.
As I'm learning as I go.
Yeah, I know. So. And I know, I belong to, right now, I belong to 2 or 3 writers groups in different places. Mm-hmm. And some of them are still in the process of just writing, but haven't published yet. And others have published, and they have different stories about how they did it. So,
okay. Judy?
Yes.
Thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, great.
And, also like to thank our entire crew for making this program possible. And my name is Mark Morris, and I hope we can meet again along the route.